Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and today I have a gold and silver bullion update for you. I got a lot of questions this last week about what the future is for gold and silver, so I hopped in my DeLorean and then I went back to the future. And what I found out was that I still don't know what to do. So, all right, but here's the deal, right? So everybody wants to know, what are you going to do with gold and silver? They want to know, what is gold and silver going to do? Here's the reality, is that everyone who's watching this right now, you are all in different life situations. So the answer actually depends on where you are in your life. What is your personal situation? I'm a big believer in getting your personal finances in order. Get out of debt, don't owe the banks any money because you're paying interest, and instead having money for yourself so that you can buy more coins for your coin collection, right? I mean, there has to be a why. Why are you going to get out of debt? Why are you going to do this? Why are you going to save gold and silver, right? And where does that fit into your personal finances? So the difference between me and a lot of guys who sell gold and silver is I actually don't try to talk you into buying gold and silver. And I have a completely different view of it. I don't do any fancy charts. I don't tell you that it's the end of the world. None of that stuff, because I've been doing this long enough now to see the end of the world come about 3 times, and it didn't happen. Plus, you can look back historically and see what happens when an economy falls apart. When an economy falls apart, lots of times it's not permanent. Now, does it suck? Yes. Is that one of the reasons why I think maybe you should have a little bit of gold and silver? Yeah, I do, but that has a lot to do with the value of paper currency and fiat money versus hard assets. And that's all that is, right? So if you have own a home and you go through an inflationary period, it was good that you owned a home, right? And the same thing is true with gold and silver. So let me remind you the 3 things that I think gold and silver are really good for. And the first thing is an emergency fund or a savings account. So for someone who buys gold or silver on a regular basis, they're always going to have that extra money that's built up. The second thing is a hedge against inflation, as I already mentioned. So anyone who lives down south of the border here, some of you are familiar with your friends who live in Mexico, who over the last couple decades in their lifetime has seen the peso revalued to where it dropped, to 10% of the value overnight. Now, what happened was it was a paper money change. So their coinage, their silver coins, their guatemaltecos and their pesos and the reales all had the same amount of silver in them that they did the day before. So they didn't go from $10 pesos, 10 pesos to 100 pesos. They didn't increase in value overnight. The value of the peso decreased. But anything that was in a material asset held its value. So when I talk about hedge against inflation, there is the gradual inflation that we're seeing right now, but there's also sudden inflation. And anytime you actually find people who no longer believe in the currency, or the currency gets revalued, something along those lines. And the last thing I see it for is an inheritance. Now, once again, I believe if you get your financial house in order, you live in America, you actually have the ability to be financially solid at pretty much any income strata. I know this because, once again, I'm old enough to watch people who have made $25,000 to $35,000 a year be in a better financial situation than the people that I see making $100,000 a year. So I know it can be done because I have observed it. I've seen it happen, right? So what I look at the silver and gold for is, if you're buying it and you're storing it up as a store of value, then if you're in a good financial situation over time, hopefully you never have to use it. And at that point, you can just give it to your heirs. Now, I've also come to this conclusion because I have helped countless number of families liquidate their assets after a loved one dies. And it's really, really a cool thing to see the people receive something of actual value, to be able to write them a check for $5,000 or $25,000 or $75,000 because their mom or dad or grandma or grandpa said, you know what, I'm going to save this stuff. All right, so that's some of the philosophies. Now, the question that a lot of you actually ask is, okay, but what's it going to be worth in 5 years or 10 years or 25 years? And of course, once again, as I established without my DeLorean, I don't really know. But I'm not going to use a lot of charts and data. I go a little bit by my gut. And so the current silver market and coin market and gold market are all kind of like zooming. Would it be this way for you? So as those continue to zoom, this feels a lot like 2010, 11, 12, 13, where we saw some big run-ups. Now, for some of you who want to use strategy, and depending, like I said at the beginning of this, depending on where you are in life, one of the things that you may want to consider doing is, especially if you have a coin collection, as you see the silver prices zoom, the stuff that you've had forever, those old Mercury dimes that used to cost you a quarter to 50 cents that now you can get $2 each for, but you got a bag of them sitting around, maybe now's the time to convert that into something else that you want. Now, if that means a vacation, it's a vacation. But if it means, hey, I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a different coin that I've always wanted, this happens a lot of times where you've got a lot of coins laying around that you can actually turn into one really nice coin. Maybe you always wanted that Hawaiian commemorative but couldn't afford it. But if you go through your old Morgan dollars that you used to only be able to get $15 for wholesale, but now you can get $25 for wholesale or even more, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, man, only 3 of these are $100, 4 of these are $100. Pretty soon you can get up there and buy that coin that you always wanted, or maybe there's a gold coin that you always wanted, and you have some of these old commemoratives or some of these old old coins sitting around that have been taking up a lot of space lately, and you haven't really been enjoying them as much. So I do think that the quality over quantity thing is something that is I preach a little bit here, but not a lot, but I think that it's a real thing that people should consider, because I hear so many people lament that I cannot afford those coins, and yet I see them buy a lot of small coins, and I think, well, sure you can, you just choose to buy small coins instead of a larger coin. All right, so speaking of different life situations, if you are near end of life situation, in other words, if you're in an elderly state, and not just aged, but aged, like, it's like, okay, I need to start considering what to do. If it's going to be difficult for your family to handle your coin collection or your gold or silver, you may want to consider liquidating stuff now while the market is still up. Of course, everyone keeps asking, but Ben, is the price going to keep going up or not? What does your gut say? Well, my gut says today, with gold about 1900 and silver about 28, that they both have a lot of potential still, with the US debt kind of going upward. I haven't seen it going downward yet in my lifetime. So I think we're still in that upward pattern, like I said before, that 2011, 12, 13 cycle. But I don't think any of that's permanent. I don't think the price of lumber going up is permanent. I don't think the price of ammo going up is permanent. I don't think the price of gold and silver or houses or any of this stuff is permanent. So that gets back to the guys who want to play a strategic role here. Now, I believe that you should just buy an ounce of silver every paycheck if you're a working guy. Never look back. That's just my philosophy, because you'll have a big stack of silver at the end of the day, and you can do something later in life with it if you want. But for those of you who are strategy and you like graphs, and I'm giving you no graphs, I've got a lot of guys who've told me the same thing. Hey, at a certain number, I'm out. At $35, at $40, pick your number and pick how much you're going to sell. Okay? So if you want the strategy on getting out of the silver or gold market, you got to pick your number you want to sell at, and you got to pick your quantity. So maybe if you're into silver right now at $25 an ounce, you say at $35 an ounce, I'm going to sell half of it, or whatever the percentage is, and then wait and see what happens from there. And at $40 an ounce, I sell another 25%, something like that. The one thing that I will say about prices and inflation and gold and silver and all this stuff is that you do get somewhat of a new normal, right? So 25 years ago when I started doing this, silver was $4 an ounce, and eventually we had a run up and it came back down a little bit, but that $5 an ounce was kind of like the norm. But then it ran up and then it came back down, and then you had a new norm of about 10 or 12 bucks. And I really think what we'll end up doing is, I think we're going to see a run up like we did before. I think you're going to see it pull back eventually, but I do think the new norm is going to be in the 20s, whatever that number is, 25, but I don't think the new norm is going to be, the long-term new norm is going to be $10 an ounce or 15 or anything like that. And similar with gold, where you saw that 300 plateau, then you kind of had that 700 number, then it was about 1,000, 1,100 kicking in there. Now, what's the new normal going to be? Well, you have a lot of volatility still in the market. It's still going to run up, but I do think that years from now, you look back and say, well, that 1750, 1800 marks like the new normal, so to speak. So that's all complete speculation. It doesn't really help you at all unless you're just like speculating on stuff. But what I think will help you is if you take the time to be intentional with your investing. And that also means, hey, by the way, for an overall plan, I'm the weird guy who likes bullion and the stock market. You should be doing both, because that's the whole point. You can't diversify into silver and gold if you're not into other things, because all of a sudden you're just all of your eggs in one basket guy instead of really diversifying. So as much as I love physical assets, all those paper assets, all the guys that I know that ended up with a lot of money, what do? They put money into their investments, into their 401k and into their Roth IRAs, and they just did that religiously. And the same thing's true with your collecting. The same thing's true with your stacking. Doing it religiously, doing it regularly. That means consistently over time. You're going to be happy you did those things over the long period of time. So the younger guys out there, keep on buying. Slow and steady wins the race. The older guys up there, you know what? You may want to take some money off the table here in this market, and you may want to have a plan, or you should have a plan for an exit strategy for you or your family. And everyone else who's kind of in the middle, I understand some of you like the tactics. Go ahead. If you want to play the game and you got your numbers to exit a little bit out, but have something to do with your money when you pull it out. This is the tricky part. If you're going to liquidate $5,000 or $10,000 worth of stuff, where are you going to put the money? What are you going to do with it? Once again, if you choose to go on a vacation, that's up to you. But if you just pull it out of an asset and then you've got it sitting around, now what are you going to do with it? Now it's not doing anything. So you actually always want to be moving towards something, a new investment, that coin you always wanted, whatever it is. All right. So that is your mid-year bullion update. And I hope that helps a little bit. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. I've been the Coin Geek. Thanks for watching. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.